I need you to pretend to be my wife. Ethan Walker's voice cut through the silence of Lila's cramped room like a gunshot. She stared at him, thread still dangling from her needle, unable to process what this wealthy rancher had just said. Before you say no, hear me out. I'll pay you $50,000, 1 year. That's all I'm asking. Lila's hands trembled. $50,000 would save everything: her home, her dignity, her future. But becoming a fake wife to Cedar Creek's richest cowboy— "You're insane," she whispered. "Maybe," Ethan said, his jaw tight with desperation. "But I'm also your only option." Before we dive into Lila's impossible choice, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. Watch until the very end to see how one kiss changes everything, and comment below with the city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Lila Dawson hadn't expected anyone to knock on her door that Thursday evening, let alone Ethan Walker. She'd been hunched over her sewing table for 6 hours straight, fingers cramped and aching, trying to finish Mrs. Henderson's wedding dress alterations before Sunday. The knock startled her so badly, she pricked her thumb with the needle. "Just a minute," she called, sucking on her bleeding thumb as she stood. Her knees protested too many hours sitting in the same position. She smoothed down her faded cotton dress and pushed a strand of dark hair behind her ear before opening the door. Ethan Walker stood on her rickety porch hat in hand, looking like he'd stepped out of a different world entirely. His boots alone probably cost more than everything Lila owned. His tailored shirt stretched across broad shoulders, and even in the dim porch light, she could see the tension in his jaw. "Mr. Walker," she said, too surprised to say anything else. "Miss Dawson, may I come in?" She hesitated. Everyone in Cedar Creek knew Ethan Walker by reputation: wealthy beyond measure, ruthless in business, and engaged to Victoria Ashford, the daughter of a railroad magnate. What could he possibly want with a seamstress widow living in a one-room apartment above the general store? "I suppose," she said, finally stepping aside. He ducked through the doorway, and suddenly her small space felt even smaller. He looked around, taking in the cramped quarters, the single bed pushed against the wall, the table covered in fabric scraps and thread. His gaze landed on the photograph of her late husband James, displayed on the narrow windowsill. "I'll get straight to the point," Ethan said, turning to face her. "I need your help with something unusual. I'm a seamstress, Mr. Walker. If you need clothing altered or— I need you to pretend to be my wife." The words hung in the air between them like something tangible. Lila actually laughed a short, nervous sound. "I'm sorry, what—" "My fiancé left me 3 days ago." His voice was flat, matter-of-fact. "She ran off with a banker from San Antonio. My grandfather's will stipulates that I must be married by my 35th birthday to inherit the ranch and the family business. My birthday is in 2 weeks. Lila sat down heavily in her chair, her mind spinning. "Mr. Walker, I don't understand what this has to do with me." "I need a wife. Not a real one, not permanently. Just someone to play the part for a year. Long enough to satisfy the terms of the will and secure my inheritance. After that, we can quietly divorce and you'll walk away with $50,000. The number hit her like a physical blow. $50,000. She could barely comprehend that amount of money. It would pay off the debts James had left behind when he died. It would buy her a real home, not this cramped room. It would give her the security she'd been desperately clawing toward for 3 years. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you're respectable. You're a widow, so there won't be questions about a sudden courtship. You're not part of high society, which means you won't have complicated connections or expectations. And frankly, because I think you need the money as much as I need a wife." She bristled at that pride flaring hot in her chest. "I'm not that desperate, aren't you?" His voice softened slightly. "I know you're 3 months behind on rent. I know the general store owner is threatening eviction. I know you work 16-hour days just to keep food on your table. There's no shame in that, Miss Dawson, but there's also no shame in accepting help when it's offered." "Help?" She stood, anger giving her strength. You call this help? You're asking me to lie to everyone, to pretend to be something I'm not, too. To save yourself from poverty. Yes. He met her gaze steadily. I know it's not ideal, but it's practical. 1 year of your life in exchange for financial security. That's the deal. And what exactly would this arrangement entail? We'd marry quickly, a small ceremony, just enough to make it legal. You'd move into the main house at my ranch. We'd attend social functions together, convince everyone that we're a legitimate married couple. In private, we'd maintain separate lives. No expectations beyond the public performance. Separate lives, she repeated slowly. Completely separate. You'd have your own wing of the house, your own space. I wouldn't intrude. Something in his voice made her look at him more closely. He wasn't just desperate, he was exhausted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and tension radiated from every line of his body. Why don't you just marry someone from your own social circle? She asked. Surely there are dozens of women who'd... There are. He cut her off. But they'd expect a real marriage, romance, love, a future together. I can't offer that. I won't lie about that. This arrangement is honest in its dishonesty, if that makes sense. You know exactly what you're getting into. No false promises, no broken hearts. Lila turned away, hugging herself against a sudden chill. Through the window, she could see the lights of Cedar Creek's main street, the prosperous businesses owned by people like Ethan Walker, people who'd never known what it felt like to choose between paying rent and eating. I need time to think, she said quietly. You have until tomorrow evening. I'm sorry to rush you, but time is something I don't have much of. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Miss Dawson, I wouldn't ask this of you if I had any other choice. I know what I'm asking is unconventional, but I promise you'd be treated with respect. The contract would be ironclad, you'd get the money regardless of what happens. You'd be protected. After he left, Lila stood in the center of her tiny room, trembling. She looked at James's photograph, his kind face frozen in time, forever 28, forever smiling. What would you tell me to do? She whispered to the photograph. But James had been gone for 3 years, and she'd learned the hard way that the dead couldn't provide answers for the living. She spent the entire night lying awake, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario. By dawn, her decision was made. The next evening, Ethan returned at exactly 6 o'clock. Lila had been waiting, her small carpet bag packed with everything she owned. I have conditions, she said before he could speak. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe relief. Name them. The money gets put in a separate account in my name immediately, not at the end of the year. I won't be left with nothing if something goes wrong. Agreed. I want a legal contract stating the terms clearly separate, living arrangements, no, physical expectations, and a guaranteed divorce after 1 year with no contest from you. My lawyer is already drafting it. And if anyone asks how we met or why we're marrying so quickly, we need a believable story. I won't be made a fool in front of your society friends. We'll say we met 6 months ago when you altered a suit for me. We kept the relationship private because of Victoria, but after she left we realized we'd been denying our feelings. It's close enough to the truth to be believable. Lila took a deep breath. Then I accept your proposal, Mr. Walker. Ethan, he said, if we're going to be married, even pretend married, you should call me Ethan. Ethan, she repeated, testing the name on her tongue. And you'll call me Lila. He extended his hand. She shook at his grip, firm and warm, and wondered what she'd just agreed to. The wedding took place 4 days later in the small chapel on Ethan's ranch. Only a handful of people attended. Ethan's lawyer, 2 ranch hands, to serve as witnesses, and surprisingly, Ethan's younger sister Caroline, who'd traveled from Austin. Caroline pulled Lila aside before the ceremony. I don't know what kind of arrangement you and my brother have, she said quietly, her eyes sharp and assessing, but I hope you're not doing this just for money. Lila met her gaze steadily. And if I am, then you're smarter than I thought. Caroline's expression softened into something almost like approval. Ethan needs someone practical, not another society princess who'll crumble when things get difficult. Just Don't hurt him. He's been through enough. The warning surprised Lila. From everything she'd heard, Ethan Walker was made of stone and steel. The idea that he could be hurt seemed absurd. The ceremony itself was brief and businesslike. Ethan's voice was steady as he repeated his vows. Lila's trembled, slightly, the weight of the lie pressing down on her. When the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," Ethan leaned in and pressed a chaste kiss to her cheek. "Welcome to the family, Mrs. Walker," he murmured so quietly only she could hear. The name sent a strange shiver through her. The main house at Walker Ranch was bigger than any building Lila had ever been inside. Ethan led her through rooms filled with expensive furniture paintings worth more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes, and finally to a wing on the second floor. "These are your rooms," he said, opening double doors to reveal a bedroom larger than her entire previous apartment. A sitting room adjoined it, along with a private bathroom that made her gasp. "This is too much," she whispered. "It's what you're entitled to as my wife." He set her bag down near the door. "My rooms are on the opposite side of the house. We'll take breakfast together in the dining room at 7 each morning. The staff expects it. Otherwise, you're free to do as you please. The library is downstairs, third door on the left. The kitchen is always open if you're hungry. There's a sewing room on the first floor that you're welcome to use." He was already turning to leave when she spoke. "Ethan," he paused. "Why did Victoria really leave you?" For a long moment he didn't answer. Then, without turning around, he said, "She said I was incapable of love, that marrying me would be like marrying a machine designed to make money and manage property. She wanted passion and romance and all the things I couldn't give her." Couldn't or wouldn't? Does it matter? He looked back at her, then his expression unreadable. "Get some rest, Lila. Tomorrow we start the performance. Cedar Creek's elite will be watching our every move." After he left, Lila sank onto the massive bed and let the reality of her situation wash over her. She was married to a stranger. She was living in a mansion. She had more money than she'd ever dreamed of. And yet, she'd never felt more alone. The first public appearance came 3 days later, a garden party at the Ashford estate. The irony wasn't lost on Lila that they were attending an event hosted by the family of Ethan's former fiancée. "Victoria won't be there," Ethan assured her as they rode in his carriage. "She's still in San Antonio, but her mother will be, and she'll be watching us like a hawk." "Why are we even going?" "Because hiding would suggest shame or weakness. We have nothing to hide. We're a married couple, legitimately wed, legally bound. The fact that our marriage is unconventional is nobody's business but ours." Lila smoothed down the dress she'd made for the occasion, a beautiful pale blue silk that had taken her 2 days to sew. It wasn't as expensive as what the other women would be wearing, but it was well made and it fit her perfectly. "You look beautiful," Ethan said suddenly. She glanced at him, startled. "You don't have to say things like that when we're alone." "I know, but it's true anyway." The garden party was exactly as overwhelming as Lila had feared. Women in elaborate dresses clustered in groups, whispering behind fans and gloves. Men in expensive suits discussed business and politics with the casual confidence of people who'd never worried about money. Ethan kept his hand firmly on Lila's lower back as they navigated the crowd, a possessive gesture that was entirely for show. But it helped ground her, gave her something to focus on, besides the dozens of eyes tracking their every movement. "Ethan Walker!" A cold voice cut through the ambient chatter. "How lovely of you to attend." Mrs. Ashford materialized in front of them, her face a mask of polite hostility. She was an elegant woman in her 50s, dripping with diamonds and disapproval. "Mrs. Ashford, thank you for the invitation." Ethan's voice was perfectly cordial. "May I introduce my wife, Lila Walker?" "Yes, we've all heard about your sudden marriage." Mrs. Ashford's gaze raked over Lila with obvious disdain. "A seamstress, I'm told. How quaint." Lila felt heat rise in her cheeks, but before she could respond, Ethan's hand tightened on her back. "A skilled artisan," he corrected smoothly. She made the dress she's wearing. I doubt there's anyone here who could match her talent with a needle and thread. I'm sure. Mrs. Ashford's tone suggested she was sure of the exact opposite. Still, it must be quite an adjustment for you, dear. Going from a room above a shop to Walker Ranch. Some might say it's almost like a fairy tale. Some might say that, Lila replied, finding her voice. Others might call it a marriage between two people who found each other at the right time. Perspective is everything, isn't it, Mrs. Ashford? A flicker of surprise crossed the older woman's face. Indeed it is. Well, I do hope you'll be very happy together, for however long it lasts. The barb landed exactly as intended, but Ethan merely smiled. Thank you for your concern. Now, if you'll excuse us, I see some business associates I need to greet. Lovely party as always. He guided Lila away before Mrs. Ashford could respond. Once they were out of earshot, Lila let out a shaky breath. That was horrible, she whispered. That was mild. You handled it well. Did I wanted to slap her? I wanted. The feeling is mutual, I assure you. There was a hint of amusement in his voice. But you kept your composure. That's what matters in this world. Appearances are everything. They spent the next 2 hours making polite conversation with various members of Cedar Creek's elite. Lila smiled until her face hurt, answered questions about their whirlwind romance with the practice story they'd rehearsed, and tried not to feel like a fraud. It was during a conversation with the mayor and his wife that disaster struck. The mayor's wife, a chatty woman named Judith, asked Lila about her previous marriage. Oh, it must have been so difficult losing your husband so young, Judith said, her sympathy genuine. How did he pass, if you don't mind me asking? Lila's throat tightened. She hated talking about James's death, hated reliving that day. He had an accident at the mill where he worked. The machinery malfunctioned and she couldn't finish the sentence. The memory of seeing James's broken body, of holding his hand as he died, of the months of grief that followed. It all crashed over her at once. Excuse me, she managed, pulling away from Ethan. I need some air. She fled toward the edge of the garden, away from the crowd, away from the sympathetic faces and probing questions. Tears burned in her eyes, and she fought to keep them from falling. Lila. Ethan had followed her. Of course he had. They were supposed to be a devoted couple. I'm fine, she said, not looking at him. Just give me a minute. You're not fine, and you don't have to be. His voice was gentler than she'd ever heard it. I shouldn't have brought you here so soon. This was too much, too fast. I agreed to this. She turned to face him, wiping at her eyes. I knew what I was signing up for. Did you? He studied her face. I don't think either of us really understood what this would entail. What do you mean? I mean, pretending to be married is one thing. Actually living as a married couple, even a fake one, is something else entirely. Being constantly scrutinized, having to share your private pain with strangers, playing a role every minute you're in public, it takes a toll. You seem to handle it fine. I've had practice. A bitter edge crept into his voice. I've been playing roles my entire life. The dutiful grandson, the successful businessman, the society bachelor. Adding devoted husband to the list isn't much of a stretch. Lila looked at him. Really looked at him for perhaps the first time. She'd been so focused on her own discomfort that she hadn't noticed the strain around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. Do you ever get to just be yourself? She asked quietly. The question seemed to catch him off guard. I'm not sure I know who that is anymore. Before she could respond, voices drifted toward them. Other party guests heading their way. Instantly, Ethan's demeanor shifted. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining in a gesture that would look affectionate to anyone watching. Are you ready to go back? He asked loud enough for the approaching group to hear. Or would you like to stay out here a bit longer? The roses are beautiful this time of evening. She understood what he was doing, giving them a plausible reason to be alone together, turning her emotional moment into a romantic interlude. The roses are lovely, she agreed, following his lead. Let's walk a bit. They strolled through the garden paths, hands still linked, maintaining the illusion. But something had shifted between them in those quiet moments of honesty. The wall of pure business arrangement had developed a crack. The weeks that followed established a strange new rhythm to Lila's life. She and Ethan shared breakfast each morning in the formal dining room, maintaining polite conversation about the day's plans. They attended social functions together, playing their roles perfectly. And then they retreated to opposite ends of the house, living separate lives under the same roof. But small moments kept disrupting the careful distance they'd established. Like the evening Lila found Ethan in the library, asleep in a chair with a ledger open on his lap. She started to leave him there, then noticed how uncomfortable his position was, how his neck was bent at an odd angle. Without thinking, she draped a blanket over him and carefully removed the ledger from his grip. His eyes opened as she did so. "Lila, you fell asleep. I was just—" She stepped back, suddenly aware of how intimate the gesture was. "Thank you." He sat up, rubbing his neck. "What time is it?" "Nearly midnight. You've been down here for hours." "Ranch business. It never ends." He noticed the blanket. "That was kind of you." "It was nothing." "It wasn't." His gaze held hers. "You didn't have to do that." "I know." She turned to leave, then paused. "Ethan, when was the last time you took a full day off?" He thought about it. "I honestly can't remember." "Maybe you should. All work and no rest, it'll break you eventually." After she left, Ethan sat in the quiet library, the blanket still draped over his shoulders, and wondered when the lines of their arrangement had started to blur. The next crack appeared during a thunderstorm 2 weeks later. Lila woke to the sound of rain hammering against the windows and thunder rumbling overhead. She'd never liked storms. They reminded her of the night James died, when lightning had struck the mill and started the fire that led to the machinery malfunction. She tried to sleep, but every boom of thunder made her flinch. Finally, she gave up and wrapped herself in a robe, heading downstairs to the kitchen. Maybe warm milk would help. She found Ethan already there, standing at the window, watching the storm rage outside. He turned when she entered. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "The storm," she admitted. "I don't like them." "Neither do I. My mother died during a storm like this. Carriage accident on the way back from town. I was 10. The confession surprised her. Ethan rarely spoke about anything personal. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "It was a long time ago." But his voice suggested otherwise. They stood together in the dark kitchen, watching lightning split the sky, and for the first time since their arrangement began, they weren't playing roles. They were just two people who couldn't sleep, sharing space in the quiet hours, when pretense felt pointless. "Do you miss him?" Ethan asked suddenly. "Your husband." "Every day. But it's different now. Less sharp. More like an ache that never quite goes away." "What was he like?" Lila smiled despite herself. "Kind, funny, terrible with money, but good with his hands. He could fix anything. He made me laugh when I wanted to cry. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." "He sounds like a good man." He was. Not perfect, but good. We were planning to save up for our own little shop where I could sell my dresses, and he could do carpentry work. Then the accident happened, and I found out he'd borrowed money to try to get us started faster. He died thinking he was securing our future. Instead, he left me drowning in debt. Do you resent him for that? The question was blunt, but somehow Lila didn't mind. Sometimes. Then I feel guilty for resenting him. It's complicated. Most things worth caring about are. Thunder crashed directly overhead, making them both jump. Without thinking, Ethan's hand reached out and found Lila's, steadying her. She gripped his fingers tightly, her heart racing. "It's just noise," he said quietly. "It can't hurt you." "I know that in my head. My heart hasn't gotten the message yet." They stood like that, hands clasped, until the worst of the storm passed. When they finally pulled apart, something unspoken hung in the air between them, an acknowledgement that they were becoming more than business partners playing a role. "Thank you," Lila said. "For what? For not making me feel foolish." "You could never be foolish." His voice was rough. "Good night, Lila." "Good night, Ethan." But as she climbed the stairs back to her room, she knew that sleep would be even more elusive now. Because the cowboy she'd agreed to pretend to marry was becoming someone she actually cared about, and that was never part of the plan. The arrangement was supposed to be simple: 1 year, $50,000, separate lives. But somewhere between breakfast conversations and garden parties, between thunderstorms and library blankets, the lines were blurring. And Lila had no idea what happened when a fake marriage started to feel terrifyingly real. The morning after the storm, Lila came down to breakfast, determined to rebuild the professional distance they'd lost in the dark kitchen. But Ethan was already seated reading the newspaper, and when he looked up at her, something in his expression made her breath catch. "Coffee?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Please." She sat across from him, accepting the cup he poured. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and they both pulled back too quickly. The housekeeper, Mrs. Reynolds, bustled in with breakfast plates. "Mr. Walker, there's a telegram from your business partner in Dallas. He'll be arriving this afternoon with his wife. They're staying through the weekend." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Thomas is coming here." "Yes, sir. He says it's urgent business that can't wait." After Mrs. Reynolds left, Lila leaned forward. "What's wrong? Thomas Morrison is the closest thing I have to a friend, but he's also the most perceptive person I know. If anyone can see through our arrangement, it's him." "Then we'll be convincing." Lila Thomas knew Victoria. He watched me with her for 2 years. He'll notice if things don't feel right. "What are you saying?" Ethan set down his coffee cup with deliberate care. "I'm saying we need to be more than polite strangers at breakfast. We need to be a couple who's actually in love." The word hung between them like a grenade: love. The one thing their contract explicitly stated wouldn't be part of the arrangement. "Then teach me," Lila said, surprising herself with her boldness. "What would you do if you actually loved me?" His eyes darkened. "That's a dangerous question." "We're in a dangerous situation. Answer it." He stood abruptly, walking to the window. "I'd know how you take your coffee without asking. I'd notice when you're tired before you say anything. I'd touch you casually, unconsciously, the way married people do. Your hand, your shoulder, your hair." He turned to face her. "I'd look at you like you're the most important person in any room. Then do those things." "Lila, we have a deal, Ethan. 1 year. If we're going to make it through this, we need to commit to the performance completely. That's all this is, right? A performance." But the way he was looking at her didn't feel like acting. "Right," he said finally. "Just a performance." Thomas and Eleanor Morrison arrived that afternoon in a flurry of expensive luggage and easy affection. They were in their early 40s, wealthy from railroad investments, and clearly devoted to each other. The way Thomas's hand automatically found Eleanor's back, the way she smiled at him, without thinking, it was everything Lila and Ethan were supposed to be pretending. "Ethan!" Thomas clapped Ethan on the shoulder, then turned his sharp gaze to Lila. "And you must be the woman who finally captured this stubborn fool's heart." "I'm Thomas Morrison. This is my wife Eleanor." Lila Walker. She extended her hand, but Eleanor pulled her into a warm hug instead. "We're so thrilled for you both," Eleanor said. "When we heard Ethan had married so suddenly, we simply had to come see for ourselves." "See if I'd lost my mind, you mean?" Ethan said dryly. "Precisely." Thomas grinned. "Married you? I still can't believe it." "Believe it." Ethan's arm slid around Lila's waist, pulling her against his side. The gesture looked natural, possessive, real. "I'm a married man now." "How did you two meet?" Eleanor asked as they moved into the parlor. Lila launched into their rehearsed story about the suit alteration 6 months ago, the secret meetings, the gradual falling in love. She'd told this story a dozen times at various social functions, but never to someone watching as carefully as Thomas. 6 months, Thomas repeated slowly. And Victoria knew nothing about this. "There was nothing to know," Ethan said smoothly. Lila and I were friends. After Victoria left, we realized our friendship had become something more. How convenient. Thomas's tone was light, but his eyes were calculating. Thomas. Eleanor shot her husband a warning look. Don't be rude. I'm not being rude. I'm being curious. Ethan's my friend. I want to make sure he's happy. I am happy. Ethan's hand tightened on Lila's waist. Happier than I've been in years. The lie came so easily, sounded so sincere, that Lila almost believed it herself. Dinner that evening was an exercise in sustained deception. Lila had changed into one of her best dresses, and when she came downstairs, Ethan's gaze traveled over her with an intensity that wasn't entirely pretend. You look beautiful, he said, offering his arm. Thank you. She linked her arm through his, feeling the solid warmth of him through his jacket. Throughout the meal, they maintained the charade. Ethan poured her wine without being asked. She touched his hand when making a point. They shared smiles and private glances that suggested years of intimacy rather than weeks of arrangement. But Thomas kept probing. Tell me, Lila, what do you love most about Ethan? She didn't hesitate. His honesty. He doesn't pretend to be something he's not. The irony of the statement, given their entire relationship, was pretense wasn't lost on Ethan. She saw his mouth twitch. And you, Ethan? Eleanor asked. What drew you to Lila? Her strength. His voice was quiet but firm. She's been through hell, and came out the other side with her dignity intact. That takes courage most people don't have. The sincerity in his tone made Lila's chest tighten. That wasn't acting. That was real. How romantic, Thomas said, but his skepticism was evident. You'll forgive me, old friend, but this all seems rather sudden. 1 month ago, you were engaged to Victoria. Now you're married to someone completely different. It's quite a dramatic shift. Victoria left me. Ethan's voice went hard. What was I supposed to do, pine after her? I'm a practical man, Thomas. When one door closes, you find another one. And Lila is a door. Thomas's eyebrows rose. That came out wrong. Ethan looked at Lila, and something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe. Lila is not a replacement for Victoria. She's nothing like Victoria. That's the point. What Ethan means, Lila interjected smoothly, is that we're different people who want different things. Victoria wanted grand romance and social prominence. I want partnership and honesty. We're better suited. Partnership, Thomas repeated. Is that what marriage is to you? A business arrangement. The question hit too close to home. Lila felt her composure slip for just a second, but Ethan caught it. Marriage is what you make it, Ethan said firmly. Lila and I understand each other. We respect each other. We've built something real in a short time. If that threatens your romantic notions of how love should work, I'm sorry, but I'm not apologizing for my choices. No one's asking you to apologize. Eleanor's voice was gentle. Thomas is just worried about you. We both are. You've been through a lot lately. I'm fine. Better than fine. Ethan reached for Lila's hand on the table, threading their fingers together. I have everything I need. The touch sent electricity up Lila's arm. His thumb stroked across her knuckles, a gesture so tender and unconscious that she almost forgot it was for show. Almost. After dinner, the men retired to Ethan's study for whiskey and business talk, leaving Lila and Eleanor in the parlor. Eleanor wasted no time getting to the point. You don't have to pretend with me, she said quietly. Lila's blood went cold. I don't know what you mean. I've been married to Thomas for 15 years. I know what real love looks like, and I know what performance looks like. Eleanor's expression wasn't judgmental, just knowing. Whatever arrangement you and Ethan have, it's none of my business. But I want you to know you're playing with fire. We're not. You're not in love with him yet. Eleanor interrupted. But you will be if you keep this up. I saw how you looked at him at dinner, how he looked at you. Those weren't the eyes of two people faking it. Lila's hands trembled. Did you say anything to Thomas? No. And I won't. But Lila, I need you to understand something. Eleanor leaned forward, her voice urgent. Ethan Walker is a good man trapped in a bad situation. His grandfather's will, his business obligations, the expectations of society, they've been crushing him for years. If you're using him, if this is just about money for you, please walk away before you break him completely. I'm not using him, Lila said, and realized with shock that it was true. At first, yes, it was about the money. I won't lie about that. But now, she stopped, unsure how to finish. Now it's complicated, Eleanor supplied. Yes. Then be careful, both of you. Because complicated has a way of becoming catastrophic. Upstairs in the study, Thomas was delivering a similar warning to Ethan. You're not fooling me, Thomas said, bluntly swirling his whiskey. I don't know what's really going on between you and that woman, but it's not a love match. Why do you care? Ethan's voice was tight with anger. Because you're my friend. Because I watched Victoria destroy you piece by piece for 2 years, and I don't want to see you make another mistake. Lila is not a mistake, isn't she? You barely know her. You married her weeks after Victoria left. Either you're having a breakdown or there's something you're not telling me. Ethan stood pacing to the window. You want the truth? Fine. My grandfather's will requires me to be married by my 35th birthday, or I lose everything. Victoria knew that. She used it as leverage for 2 years, dangling the possibility of marriage while making increasingly ridiculous demands. When she finally left, I had 2 weeks to find a wife. Lila agreed to help me. Thomas went very still. It's a business arrangement. It was, at first. At first, Ethan turned to face his friend, his expression raw. I don't know what it is now. I don't know what I'm doing, Thomas. All I know is that when I'm with her, I don't feel like I'm drowning anymore. She doesn't want anything from me except honesty. She doesn't try to change me, or fix me, or mold me into someone I'm not. She just accepts me. You're falling for her. That wasn't supposed to happen. It never is. Thomas stood crossing to put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. The question is, does she feel the same way? I don't know. We agreed to keep this professional, separate lives, no emotional entanglement. How's that working out for you? Ethan laughed a hollow sound. Terribly. Then maybe it's time to renegotiate the terms. What if she doesn't want to? What if the only reason she's here is the money? If I tell her how I'm feeling, I risk losing the one good thing in my life right now. Or, Thomas said quietly, you risk gaining everything you never knew you wanted. That night Lila couldn't sleep. Eleanor's words kept echoing in her head. You're playing with fire. She'd been so focused on maintaining the arrangement, on getting through the year, that she hadn't stopped to examine what was happening to her heart. She cared about Ethan. More than she should. More than was safe. She found herself wandering downstairs, drawn to the study, where she knew he often worked late. She could see light under the door. She should go back to bed. She should maintain the boundaries they'd established. Instead, she knocked. Come in. Ethan was at his desk, shirt sleeves rolled up, papers scattered everywhere. He looked exhausted. When he saw her, he sat back, running a hand through his hair. Can't sleep? He asked. No. You. Too much work. Too much whiskey. Too much thinking. About what? He looked at her for a long moment. About how much harder this is than I thought it would be. The arrangement. Everything. He stood, moving around the desk toward her. Lila Thomas knows. He figured it out. Her heart stopped. What did you tell him? The truth. That we made a deal. That it was supposed to be temporary and professional. That it's become something else entirely. Ethan, don't. He held up a hand. Don't tell me I'm wrong. Don't tell me you don't feel it too. I see the way you look at me sometimes, like you're trying to figure out if I'm real, or just another disappointment waiting to happen. That's not fair. None of this is fair. We're lying to everyone, including ourselves. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell whiskey and exhaustion and something uniquely him. Ask me what I wanted to say at dinner when Thomas asked what I love about you. Ethan, don't. I wanted to say that you make me feel human again. That before you, I was just going through motions, playing a role, existing without living. I wanted to say that I think about you constantly, that I invented reasons to come home early just to see you at dinner, that I lie awake at night wondering what would happen if I crossed the hallway to your room and knocked on your door. Lila's breath caught. Stop. Why? Because you don't want to hear it, or because you don't want to admit you've thought about it too. Because this isn't what we agreed to. Her voice shook. We had a deal. 1 year. Separate lives. No complications. It's already complicated, Lila. It became complicated the night of the storm, maybe even before that. We can't do this. She backed away, shaking her head. I can't do this. You're paying me to be here. Anything that happens between us is tainted by that transaction. How would I ever know if what I feel is real or just gratitude? How would you know if I actually want you or just want the security you provide? The words hit him like physical blows. She saw him flinch, saw the hurt flash across his face before he shuddered it. You're right, he said, his voice gone flat. I apologize. I've had too much to drink. I shouldn't have said any of that. Ethan, go to bed, Lila. We'll forget this conversation happened. But as she climbed the stairs back to her room, she knew neither of them would forget. The words had been spoken. The truth had been laid bare. They couldn't pretend anymore that this was just business, and that terrified her more than anything else. The next morning, breakfast was agony. They sat in stiff silence, not making eye contact, while Thomas and Eleanor chatted obliviously about their plans for the day. We thought we'd ride out to see the new stallion Ethan's been training, Thomas said. Eleanor wants to sketch him. You'll join us, won't you, Lila? I don't ride, Lila said quickly. Ethan could teach you, Eleanor suggested brightly. What better way for newlyweds to spend time together? Lila's eyes met Ethan's across the table. His expression was carefully blank, but she could see the tension in his jaw. Another time, perhaps, Ethan said. Lila has sewing projects to work on today. Actually, Lila heard herself say, I'd like to learn, if you're willing to teach me. Something flickered in Ethan's eyes. Surprise, maybe hope. Are you sure? Yes. An hour later, she found herself in the stable facing an enormous chestnut mare that seemed far too large and intimidating. This is Stella, Ethan said, his hand gentle on the horse's neck. She's calm and patient, perfect for beginners. She's huge. She's gentle. Trust me. He moved to her side, his voice softening. I won't let anything happen to you. He helped her mount, his hands steady on her waist as he lifted her into the saddle. Even through the fabric of her riding dress, she could feel the warmth of his touch. Relax, he murmured, adjusting her position. You're too stiff. Let your body move with the horse. He swung up onto his own horse, a magnificent black stallion, and led them out at a walk. Thomas and Eleanor rode ahead, giving them space. About last night, Ethan began. We don't have to talk about it. I think we do. He kept his eyes forward, his voice low. I meant what I said, but I also understand why you can't accept it. The power imbalance, the transaction, it makes everything murky. Yes. So what do we do? Lila took a breath. We stick to the arrangement, 1 year, then we part ways as agreed. Anything else is too risky. Risky for who? For both of us. She finally looked at him. I can't afford to fall for you, Ethan. When this year ends, I need to be able to walk away with my heart intact. If I let myself feel more than I already do, I'll break. And I've been broken enough. He was quiet for a long moment. What if I told you I don't want you to walk away? Then I'd say you're not thinking clearly. You're still recovering from Victoria. You're under pressure from your grandfather's will. Your judgment is compromised. My judgment has never been clearer. Ethan, please, don't make this harder than it already is. They rode in silence after that, but the words hung heavy between them. When they returned to the stable, Ethan helped her dismount, his hands lingering on her waist just a second too long. "Thank you for teaching me," she said softly. "Anytime." His thumb brushed against her ribs, a whisper of a touch that made her breath catch. "Lila, if you ever change your mind, I won't." But as she walked back to the house, she knew it was a lie. She was already changing her mind. She was already falling. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. Thomas and Eleanor left the next morning, but not before Thomas pulled Ethan aside one final time. "Whatever you're doing, whatever game you're playing, stop pretending it's just business," Thomas said. "That woman is in love with you, whether she knows it yet or not, and you're in love with her. The only question is whether you're both brave enough to admit it." After they left the house, felt too quiet, too empty. Lila threw herself into sewing projects, desperate for distraction. But 3 days later, everything changed. She was in the sewing room when Mrs. Reynolds found her face pale. "Mrs. Walker, there's a man here to see you. He says he's your brother-in-law." Lila's blood went cold. "Peter, he's waiting in the front parlor. Should I fetch Mr. Walker?" "No." Lila stood on shaking legs. "I'll handle this." Peter Dawson stood in the parlor, hat in hand, looking exactly as she remembered: weak chin, calculating eyes, fake smile. "Lila, look at you, living in luxury now." "What do you want, Peter?" "Is that any way to greet family?" His smile widened. "I heard about your marriage to Ethan Walker. Quite a step up from my brother, wouldn't you say?" "Get out." "Not until we talk about James's debt, the debt you inherited, the debt that's still unpaid." "I've been paying it off. Too slowly. I need the full amount. Now." He named a sum that made Lila's head spin. "I don't have that kind of money." "Don't you? You married one of the richest men in Texas. Surely your husband can spare a few $1,000s for his wife's family obligations." "This isn't Ethan's problem. Then make it his problem. Unless you want me to start asking questions about how a poor seamstress ended up married to a wealthy rancher weeks after his fiancée left him. People might find that suspicious. Scandalous, even." The threat was clear. Lila felt rage and fear war inside her chest. "You're blackmailing me. I'm collecting on a debt. You have 1 week, Lila. Get me the money, or I start talking to newspapers. I'm sure they'd love to hear about Cedar Creek's most convenient marriage." After he left, Lila stood frozen in the parlor, her mind racing. She couldn't tell Ethan. If she did, she'd have to explain the full extent of James's debts, admit that she'd been hiding financial problems even worse than Ethan knew. He'd think she'd married him just for money, that everything between them was calculated. But if she didn't tell him, and Peter made good on his threat, their entire arrangement would collapse. She was trapped. And for the first time since accepting Ethan's proposal, Lila wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Lila spent the next 2 days avoiding Ethan. She took her meals in her room, claimed headaches when he knocked on her door, and buried herself in sewing projects that didn't need doing. But she couldn't hide from the problem. Peter wanted money she didn't have, and the clock was ticking. On the 3rd day, Ethan cornered her in the library. "What's going on?" he demanded, closing the door behind him. "Nothing. I'm fine." "You're not fine. You haven't looked at me in 3 days. You barely eat. Mrs. Reynolds says you're not sleeping." He crossed his arms. "Talk to me." "There's nothing to talk about." "Lila, we made a deal. Honesty is part of that deal. So I'm asking you again, what's wrong?" She wanted to tell him. God, she wanted to tell him everything. But the words stuck in her throat, choked by pride and fear and shame. "It's personal," she said finally. "We're married. Even if it's fake, your problems are my problems." "This one isn't." His jaw tightened. "Fine. Keep your secrets. But don't expect me to pretend everything's normal when you're clearly falling apart." He turned to leave, and Lila felt something crack inside her chest. "Wait." The word came out broken. "Ethan, wait." He stopped his hand on the door handle but didn't turn around. "My brother-in-law came to see me," she said quietly. "James's brother. He wants money. A lot of money. Money I don't have." Now Ethan turned his expression sharp. "How much?" $5,000. He didn't even blink. I'll write him a check. No. She stood shaking her head violently. No, you can't do that. Why not? We're married. Your debts are my debts. Because this isn't your responsibility. Because I already owe you too much. Because if you pay this, it proves that our entire marriage is just a transaction, and I'm nothing but— She stopped, tears burning her eyes. Nothing but what? His voice was dangerously soft. Nothing but a woman who sold herself for security. The words hung in the air like acid. Ethan crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbing her shoulders. Is that what you think, that you sold yourself? Didn't I married you for money. That's the definition of stop. His grip tightened. You married me to survive. There's a difference. You made a practical choice in an impossible situation. That doesn't make you anything except strong. Then why does it feel so dirty? Because you're a good person in a bad position, and good people always punish themselves harder than they should. He released her shoulders, but didn't step back. Let me pay the debt, Lila. Please. I can't. If you do, it changes everything between us. It makes me dependent on you in a way I can't. She broke off, wiping at her eyes. There's more. Peter isn't just asking for money. He's threatening to go to the newspapers if I don't pay. He'll tell them our marriage is suspicious, that it's too convenient, too sudden. He'll destroy your reputation and mine. Ethan went very still. He's blackmailing you. Yes. When did he give you? 1 week, 4 days ago. So we have 3 days. He released her, pacing away. This is my fault. I should have anticipated something like this. Your late husband's family people who might have claims on you, I should have protected you better. How could you have known? It's my job to know, to handle these things. That's what I do. I manage problems, mitigate risks, protect what's mine. He stopped, realizing what he'd said. What's important to me? I'm not yours, Ethan. Aren't you? He turned to face her, his expression raw. Maybe not in the way a husband and wife should belong to each other. But you're in my house. You wear my name. You sit across from me every morning. And the thought of someone hurting you makes me want to destroy things. Her breath caught. Don't say things like that. Why? Because it complicates our arrangement. Lila, our arrangement was complicated the moment you walked through my door. Before she could respond, there was a sharp knock. Mrs. Reynolds entered without waiting for permission. Mr. Walker, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a woman here. She says her name is Victoria Ashford, and she needs to speak with you urgently. The blood drained from Lila's face. Ethan's expression went carefully blank. Tell her I'll be there in a moment, he said. After Mrs. Reynolds left, Lila found her voice. Your former fiancé is here? Yes. What does she want? I have no idea, but we're about to find out. He moved toward the door, then paused. Lila, whatever she says, whatever happens, don't let her get to you. Victoria is very good at finding people's weaknesses and exploiting them. Should I come with you? No. This is something I need to handle alone. But after he left, Lila couldn't stay away. She crept to the hallway outside the parlor, staying just out of sight, but close enough to hear every word. Victoria's voice came first, honey-sweet and calculated. Ethan, darling, you look well. Marriage agrees with you. What are you doing here, Victoria? Can't I visit an old friend? We're not friends. We're nothing. You made that clear when you left. I made a mistake. Her voice dropped, becoming intimate. I realize that now. I was foolish, Ethan. Childish. I wanted you to chase me, to fight for me. Instead, you married someone else within weeks. What did you expect me to do? My birthday was approaching. The will. Oh, let's not pretend this is about the will. You married that seamstress to punish me, to show me you didn't need me. I married Lila because she agreed to marry me. That's all. Agreed. Victoria laughed, bitter and sharp. That's an interesting word choice. Did she agree, or did you pay her? Everyone in town is talking about how convenient this marriage is, how calculating. The poor widow and the desperate heir. It's almost poetic. Get to the point, Victoria. Why are you here? I want you back. Lila's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. I want us to try again. Victoria continued. I know I hurt you, but we were good together, Ethan. We understood each other. This marriage of yours, it's not real. Everyone knows it. Annul it. Marry me instead. Give me the chance I should have taken the first time. The silence stretched so long, Lila thought she might scream. Then Ethan spoke, his voice like ice. No. No. Just like that. Just like that. Victoria, when you left, you did me a favor. You showed me what I'd been too blind to see for 2 years, that we would have made each other miserable. We don't love each other. We never did. We were just two people going through the motions because it made social sense. And this seamstress, you love her. Another pause. Lila held her breath. What I feel for Lila is none of your business, Ethan said finally. But I can tell you this, she's more honest in one conversation than you were in 2 years. She doesn't play games. She doesn't manipulate. She treats me like a human being instead of a bank account with a heartbeat. How noble and how naive. Victoria's voice turned vicious. Do you really think she'd have married you if you were poor? Do you think she stays with you for anything other than your money? You're being used, Ethan, and everyone can see it except you. Get out. Ethan, get out of my house now and don't come back. Footsteps approached the door. Lila fled down the hallway and up the stairs, her heart hammering. She made it to her room just as she heard the front door slam. She sank onto her bed, Victoria's words echoing in her head. Do you really think she'd have married you if you were poor? The answer was no. Of course not. Their entire relationship was built on a transaction. Victoria was right about that at least, but she was wrong about one thing. Lila didn't stay for the money anymore. She stayed because somewhere between breakfast conversations and thunderstorms, between garden parties and riding lessons, she'd fallen in love with the man who'd offered her an impossible deal. And that made everything so much worse. That night, Ethan didn't come to dinner. Mrs. Reynolds said he'd locked himself in his study with a bottle of whiskey and instructions not to be disturbed. Lila knew she should respect his wishes. She should stay in her room and let him process whatever Victoria's visit had stirred up. Instead, she found herself outside his study door at midnight. She knocked softly. Ethan, it's me. No answer. I know you're in there. I know you probably want to be alone, but I think we need to talk. Still nothing. I heard what Victoria said. I was listening in the hallway. I know that's terrible, but I couldn't help myself. And Ethan, she's wrong about me. About us. Or maybe she's right about how it started, but she's wrong about how it is now. The door opened so suddenly she stumbled forward. Ethan caught her, his hands steady on her arms despite the whiskey on his breath. You heard everything, he asked. Yes. Then you heard me defend you. You heard me choose you over her. I heard you say I'm honest. But I'm not Ethan. I've been lying to you since the beginning. He released her, stepping back. About what? About the debts. They're worse than I told you. James didn't just borrow money for the shop he gambled. He lost thousands trying to win back what he'd borrowed. When he died, he left me with debts I'll never be able to repay, not in 10 lifetimes. Peter knows that. He's been bleeding me dry for 3 years, and I let him because I felt guilty. Because James was his brother, and I thought I owed his family something. How much do you owe in total? She told him, watched his expression carefully for judgment, for disgust. But all she saw was calculation. I'll pay it, he said simply. Ethan, no. Not as your husband, as your friend. As someone who cares about you and doesn't want to see you destroyed by dead man's mistakes. He moved closer. I'll pay Peter off, and I'll make sure he never bothers you again. But in return, I need something from you. What? The truth. No more hiding, no more secrets. If something's wrong, you tell me. If someone threatens you, you come to me. We're partners in this arrangement, Lila. That means we protect each other. Partners, she repeated softly. Unless you want to be something else. His voice dropped. Unless you want to renegotiate the terms of our agreement. What are you asking me? I'm asking if you want this marriage to be real, not for my grandfather's will, not for your financial security, but because we choose it, because we want it." Lila's throat closed. This was the moment. The decision that would change everything. She could say no, maintain the safety of their arrangement, protect her heart for 3 more months until the year was up. Or she could take the risk, jump into the unknown, trust that what she felt was real and not just gratitude dressed up as love. "I don't know," she whispered. "Ethan, how can I know if what I feel is real? How can you know everything between us is so tangled up in money and contracts and desperation? How do we separate what's real from what's convenient? Maybe we can't. Maybe we'll never know for sure." He reached up, cupping her face in his hands. "But I know that when Victoria offered to come back, all I could think about was you. About how you look in the morning before you've put on your polite face. About the way you argue with me when you think I'm being stubborn. About how you covered me with a blanket, and how you held my hand during the storm. Those weren't acts of convenience, Lila. Those were acts of caring. Caring isn't love. No, but it's a start." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. "I'm not asking you to love me. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that this could be more than we bargained for." She was about to respond when they heard the sound of breaking glass from downstairs, followed by shouting. They ran to the landing, looking down into the foyer, where 2 ranch hands were restraining a struggling figure. "Peter, let me go," he shouted. "I have a right to see my sister-in-law. Lila, I know you're here." Ethan was down the stairs in seconds, Lila right behind him. "What the hell is going on?" Ethan demanded. "This man broke through the kitchen window," one of the ranch hands said. "Drunk as a skunk and screaming for Mrs. Walker." Peter's eyes locked on Lila. "There you are, playing lady of the manor while my brother's debts go unpaid. You think you can ignore me? You think you can hide behind your rich husband?" "I'll pay you," Lila said quickly. "The money you asked for, I'll get it. Just leave, please." "Too late for that." Peter's smile was ugly. "I already talked to a reporter from the Dallas newspaper. Told him all about how you married Ethan Walker weeks after his fiancée left him. How convenient it all was. How suspicious." Ethan's hands clenched into fists. "You did what?" "Sold a story. Got paid for it too. Not as much as I wanted from Lila, but enough. The article runs tomorrow morning. Everyone's going to know what a fraud this marriage is." "You bastard," Ethan breathed. "Me. I'm the bastard. You're the one who bought yourself a wife. Lila's the one who sold herself. I'm just telling the truth." Ethan lunged forward, but Lila grabbed his arm. "Don't. He's not worth it." "Listen to your wife," Peter sneered. "Though I guess the question is, how long will she be your wife once the truth comes out? How long before this whole charade falls apart?" "Get him out of here," Ethan told the ranch hands. "Take him into town. Hand him over to the sheriff. Breaking and entering, trespassing, whatever charges will stick." As they dragged Peter away, still shouting threats and accusations, Lila felt her knees give out. Ethan caught her, pulling her against his chest. "It's over," she whispered. "Everything we've built, it's going to come crashing down." "Not if we get ahead of it." She pulled back to look at him. "What do you mean?" "We tell our own story, before the newspaper does. We control the narrative." His eyes were fierce with determination. "We throw a party, invite everyone who matters, and we make them believe that what we have is real. But it's not, isn't it?" He gripped her shoulders. "Lila, forget the contract for a minute. Forget the money and the arrangement and the whole damn charade. Look at me and tell me honestly, is this still just business to you?" She looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who'd defended her to Victoria, who'd offered to pay her debts without judgment, who'd held her during storms and taught her to ride and made her feel less alone than she'd felt in years. "No," she admitted. "It stopped being just business a long time ago. Then we fight for it. Together. We tell everyone that we fell in love, that it was fast and crazy and not what we planned, but it's real. We make them believe it. And if they don't, Then we weather the storm anyway, because I'm done pretending, Lila. I'm done keeping you at arm's length because I'm afraid of what I feel. Victoria was right about one thing. I can't keep going through the motions. I need something real. And you're the most real thing that's ever happened to me. Ethan, I love you. The words came out rough, desperate. I don't know when it happened. Maybe the night you put a blanket over me. Maybe the first time you called me on my bullshit at breakfast. But I love you, and I don't care if that wasn't part of the deal. I don't care if it complicates everything. I love you, and I'm not going to pretend I don't. Lila couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Could only feel the weight of his confession crushing her chest. Say something, he pleaded. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me something. I'm afraid, she whispered. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of how much I want to believe you. What if the newspaper ruins you? What if your grandfather's will gets contested? What if everything falls apart and you blame me for it? Then we deal with it. But Lila, I've spent my whole life afraid of risk, afraid of loss, afraid of caring too much about anything that couldn't be controlled or managed or put in a ledger. I'm tired of being afraid. I'd rather risk everything with you than risk nothing alone. She stared at him, this man who'd been a stranger 4 months ago, who'd offered her an impossible deal, who'd somehow become the person she thought about first thing in the morning and last thing at night. The party, she said finally, went to 3 days, Saturday night. Everyone who's anyone in Cedar Creek will be there. And we tell them we're in love. We tell them the truth. He searched her face. Are we in love? It was the question she'd been avoiding, the truth she'd been running from. But standing there in the wreckage of their careful arrangement, with Peter's threats still echoing and the newspaper article looming, she realized running was pointless. The truth had a way of catching up. I don't know what love is supposed to feel like, she said slowly. James and I grew up together. Loving him was easy, comfortable, like breathing. This you, it's not easy. It's terrifying and consuming, and it keeps me up at night. But when I think about the year being up, about walking away from you, I can't breathe. So maybe that's love. Maybe love isn't supposed to be easy. That's not an answer. And yes, she said. Yes, I'm in love with you. God help me. I'm in love with you, and I have been for weeks, and I hate it because it ruins everything. It doesn't ruin everything. It fixes everything. How can you say that? Our arrangement was clean, simple. Now it's messy and complicated and... He kissed her. It wasn't like the chaste peck at their wedding, or the performative touches at social functions. This was real, desperate and fierce, and full of months of suppressed wanting. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer. She gripped his shirt, rising on her toes to meet him, and for a few perfect seconds, nothing else existed except the taste of whiskey on his lips and the thundering of her heart. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. That, he said roughly, is what's real. Everything else is just noise. Lila laughed shakily. We're in so much trouble. Probably. But at least we're in it together. The party, Saturday. We convince everyone we're madly in love. That won't be hard. I am madly in love with you. Ethan. Too much. Way too much. But don't stop. She pulled back to look at him. What happens after Saturday, after we convince everyone, or fail to convince everyone? I don't know. But I know I want you here. Not because of a contract. Not because of my grandfather's will. Because I choose you. And I hope you choose me. I do choose you. That's what scares me. Then be scared with me. We'll figure it out as we go. It wasn't a perfect plan. It wasn't even a good plan. But it was honest, and honesty was all they had. The kiss had changed everything, just like the title promised. But unlike the fairy tales Lila had read as a girl, one kiss didn't solve their problems. It just made them more complicated. The newspaper article was still coming. Peter's accusations would still spread. Society would still question their marriage. But for the first time since she'd agreed to Ethan's proposal, Lila felt like maybe they had a chance. Not because their story made sense, not because it followed the rules, but because they'd stopped pretending and started fighting for something real. And sometimes that was enough. The next morning, Lila woke to sunlight streaming through her windows and the immediate terrifying memory of what had happened the night before. She'd kissed Ethan. She'd told him she loved him. She'd agreed to fight for a marriage that had started as a lie. She pressed her hands to her face, half expecting to feel different somehow. But she was still just Lila, still the seamstress who'd married for money, still terrified of what came next. A knock on her door made her jump. "Lila, are you awake?" Ethan's voice rough with exhaustion. She opened the door to find him still in yesterday's clothes, his hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. He held up a newspaper. "It's out. Earlier than Peter said. They ran it this morning." Her stomach dropped. "Let me see." The headline screamed across the front page: "Walker Ranch heirs suspicious marriage, love, or desperation." The article was exactly as damning as she'd feared. It questioned the timing, suggested Lila was a gold digger, implied Ethan had bought himself a wife to meet his grandfather's requirements. Peter was quoted extensively painting himself as a concerned family member, worried about his sister-in-law being taken advantage of. "It's worse than I thought," she whispered. "Read to the end." She did. The final paragraph made her blood run cold. The reporter had tracked down Victoria, who'd given a quote dripping with false sympathy. "I hope Ethan finds happiness, but one must question a marriage that happened so quickly after our engagement ended. Love doesn't work on a schedule, especially not one dictated by inheritance deadlines." "She did this on purpose," Lila said. "She came here yesterday to see if she could get you back, and when you refused, she made sure this article did maximum damage." "Probably. But it doesn't matter now. What matters is how we respond." "The party's tomorrow night. Is there any way people won't have seen this by then?" "Everyone will have seen it. That's the point. We invite them anyway. We look them in the eye and dare them to doubt us." "Ethan, they're going to destroy us. Only if we let them." He grabbed her hands, his grip almost painful. "Lila, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Can you trust that we can get through this?" She wanted to say yes. She wanted to be as brave as he seemed to think she was. But fear clawed at her throat. "What if I make it worse? What if I say the wrong thing or freeze up or—" "Then I'll be there. We'll handle it together." He pulled her closer. "But first we need to go into town. Show our faces. Act like we have nothing to hide." "Are you insane?" "Possibly. But hiding makes us look guilty. We need to be visible, united, completely unfazed by this article." "I can't." "Yes, you can. You're the woman who stood up to Mrs. Ashford at the garden party. The woman who told Victoria's mother that perspective is everything. You're stronger than you think." She wished she believed him. They rode into Cedar Creek an hour later in Ethan's finest carriage, Lila wearing her best dress, both of them looking like they didn't have a care in the world. But the moment they stepped onto Main Street, Lila felt the weight of every stare, heard the whispers that followed them like a plague. "Don't react." Ethan murmured, his hand firm on her lower back. "Smile. Act like nothing's wrong." They went to the general store first. Mrs. Patterson, who'd always been kind to Lila when she was struggling, now looked at her with obvious pity and suspicion. "Mrs. Walker," she said carefully, "I wasn't expecting to see you today." "Why wouldn't I be here?" Lila kept her voice light. "I need thread for a new dress I'm making." "I see. And you're well?" "Perfectly well, thank you." The subtext was clear. Are you being coerced? Are you trapped? Do you need help? "We're actually here to invite you to a party at the ranch tomorrow night," Ethan said smoothly. "We're celebrating our marriage properly. Everyone's invited." Mrs. Patterson's eyebrows shot up. "Everyone?" "Everyone who wants to come. 7 o'clock. There'll be food, music, dancing. We'd be honored if you'd attend." After they left the store, Lila turned on Ethan. "Everyone, are you trying to humiliate us in front of the entire town? I'm trying to show them we're not ashamed, that we're not hiding. We should be hiding. We should be... What? Running away, admitting defeat. He stopped walking, forcing her to face him. Lila, I know you're scared, but running won't fix this. We face it head on, or we lose everything. They continued down the street, stopping at the bank, the post office, the dressmaker's shop. At each place, Ethan issued the same invitation, endured the same shocked reactions, and maintained the same unflappable confidence. It was at the cafe where things finally exploded. They were having lunch trying to maintain normalcy when Victoria walked in with her mother. The moment their eyes met, Victoria's face split into a cruel smile. "Ethan, Lila, what a surprise," she said, approaching their table. "I didn't expect to see you out and about after this morning's... news." "Victoria," Ethan's voice was ice, "enjoying your 15 minutes of relevance. I simply told the truth when asked. Surely you can't fault me for that. You orchestrated the entire thing. Had your mother's friend at the newspaper reach out to Peter, fed them quotes designed to destroy us. Don't play innocent." Victoria's smile faltered for a second. "You're being paranoid. Am I funny how the article came out the day after you showed up at my house begging me to take you back? How convenient that it paints Lila as a gold digger and me as desperate. If the truth hurts, the truth is that you can't stand that I moved on, that I found someone genuine while you're still playing your manipulative games." Ethan stood, pulling Lila up with him. "We're done here. Lila, let's go." But Lila didn't move. She was staring at Victoria, something crystallizing in her mind. "You love him," she said suddenly. Victoria's face went white. "What? You love Ethan. That's why you left, not because you found someone better, but because you were terrified of how much you cared. And now you're trying to destroy what we have because you can't stand that he's happy without you. You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? I know what it looks like when someone's afraid of their own feelings. I've been that person." Lila stepped closer. "But the difference between us is that I stopped running. I admitted what I felt. And you're still so scared of being vulnerable that you'd rather burn everything down than risk being honest." "How dare you?" "Mrs. Ashford," Ethan interrupted quietly. "My wife asked you a question. Do you love me?" Victoria's composure cracked. Tears filled her eyes. "What does it matter you married her?" "It matters because if you'd told me the truth, if you'd been honest about your feelings instead of running away, things might have been different. But you chose pride over honesty. And now it's too late." "Is it?" Victoria's voice broke. "Ethan, you can't possibly love her. You barely know her. This marriage is a sham to satisfy your grandfather's will. Everyone knows it. Then everyone is wrong." He pulled Lila against his side. "I love my wife, not because I have to, not because it's convenient, but because she's the bravest, most honest person I've ever met. She faces her fears instead of running from them. She owns her mistakes instead of blaming others. She's everything you could never be." The words hit Victoria like physical blows. She stumbled back, her mother catching her arm. "You'll regret this," Victoria said, her voice shaking. "Both of you." "The only thing I regret," Ethan said, "is wasting 2 years of my life on someone who didn't have the courage to love me back." They left Victoria standing in the cafe, tears streaming down her face, her mother fussing over her. Outside, Lila was trembling. "That was cruel," she said. "It was honest. She needed to hear it." "Did she? Or did you just want to hurt her the way she hurt you?" Ethan stopped, turning to face her. "Are you defending her?" "No, I just..." Lila struggled for words. "I know what it's like to be afraid of love, to push someone away because you're terrified of being hurt. She's a terrible person, but I understand her." "Then you're a better person than I am, because all I feel is relief that I dodged that particular catastrophe." They rode home in tense silence, but that evening as they sat in the library going over plans for the party, Ethan spoke quietly. "You were right, about Victoria. I was cruel. You were hurt. That's not an excuse." He set down his pen. I've been thinking about what you said, about being afraid of love. Were you with me? Terrified. Are you still? Yes, but I'm more afraid of walking away. He reached across the desk, taking her hand. Tomorrow night, everyone we know will be watching us, judging us, looking for cracks in our story. Can you do this? Can you stand in front of them and claim this marriage? Can you? Your reputation is on the line. Your inheritance. Everything you've worked for. I don't care about any of that if I lose you in the process. The words settled over her like a warm blanket. When did this happen? When did we stop being business partners and become this? I don't know. Maybe it was inevitable. Maybe we were always going to end up here. Or maybe we're both just desperate enough to believe our own lies. He flinched. Is that what you think this is? A lie we've convinced ourselves is true? I don't know what to think anymore. Everything's so tangled up I can't separate what's real from what's performance. Then let me make it simple. He stood rounding the desk to pull her to her feet. This is real. He kissed her slow and deep, nothing like the desperate kiss from the night before. This was tender, claiming a promise. Does that feel like a lie? No, she breathed. Then stop questioning it. Stop looking for reasons why this can't work and just let it work. It's not that easy. It could be, if you'd let it. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe that love could be simple, that they could just choose each other and everything else would fall into place. But life had taught her that nothing was ever that simple. The morning of the party, chaos descended. Mrs. Reynolds directed an army of staff preparing food, decorating rooms, setting up tables. Flowers arrived by the wagon load. Musicians came to set up in the ballroom. The house transformed into something magical, and Lila felt increasingly like an imposter. This is too much, she told Ethan as she watched servants arrange elaborate centerpieces. It's exactly enough. Tonight we show Cedar Creek that we belong together, that we're not ashamed of our marriage. What if no one comes? They'll come. Curiosity alone will guarantee it. The question is whether they come as friends or enemies. The answer became clear as carriages began arriving that evening. The guests came in droves, dressed in their finest, their faces arranged in expressions of polite curiosity that barely masked their hunger for scandal. Lila stood at Ethan's side in the receiving line, her hand tucked into the crook of his arm, smiling until her face hurt. She wore a dress she'd made herself, deep emerald silk that made her eyes glow, and she'd never felt more exposed. Mr. and Mrs. Walker, the mayor said, his handshake firm. Quite a bold move, throwing a party after this morning's article. We have nothing to hide, Ethan replied smoothly. My wife and I are proud of our marriage. We wanted to celebrate it properly with our community. Your wife? The mayor's gaze moved to Lila. Tell me, Mrs. Walker, how does it feel to go from seamstress to mistress of Walker Ranch in a matter of weeks? The question was designed to humiliate her. Lila felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice steady. It feels like I married a good man who saw value in me that others overlooked. I'm grateful every day for that. Grateful enough to marry him for his money. Ethan's grip on her arm tightened, but Lila spoke before he could. I married Ethan because he offered me a chance at a better life, yes. I won't apologize for that. But I stayed because I fell in love with him. Love doesn't follow a schedule, Mayor. It doesn't wait for the right moment or the proper amount of time. It happens when it happens. The mayor's wife, standing beside him, smiled. Well said, dear. I think it's romantic. Other guests followed, each with their own veiled insults and probing questions. Lila answered them all with as much grace as she could muster, her hand never leaving Ethan's arm. But it was when Mrs. Ashford arrived with Victoria that the real test began. Mrs. Walker, Mrs. Ashford said coldly, how brave of you to show your face after the newspaper article. Why wouldn't I show my face? I haven't done anything wrong. Haven't you, marrying a man you barely know for his money? Some might call that fraud. Some might call it survival, Lila countered. I was drowning in debt after my husband died. Ethan offered me a lifeline. I took it. That doesn't make me a criminal, it makes me practical. Practical. Victoria laughed bitterly. Is that what we're calling it now? What would you call it? Lila asked. You had him for 2 years and threw him away. I had one conversation and saw what you were too blind to see, that he's worth fighting for. You don't love him. You love his money. You're wrong. Lila's voice rang out clear and strong. I love the man who held my hand during a thunderstorm, even though we barely knew each other. I love the man who defended me to you yesterday, even though it would have been easier to stay silent. I love the man who sees me as an equal partner instead of an ornament or a transaction. You had the chance to love him and you walked away. That's on you, not me. The room had gone quiet. Everyone was watching, waiting to see how this would play out. Victoria's composure shattered. You think you've won. You think because you played the poor widow card and he felt sorry for you, you've somehow earned your place here. But you'll never be one of us. You'll always be the seamstress who married up. You're right. Lila's voice was quiet but firm. I'll never be one of you. Thank God for that. Because if being one of you means being cruel and judgmental and valuing money over kindness, I'll happily stay an outsider. Ethan's hand found hers squeezing tight. Victoria, Mrs. Ashford, I think it's time you left. This is outrageous, Mrs. Ashford sputtered. You can't throw us out. I can and I am. This is my home, my wife's home, and I won't have you disrespecting her under our roof. You'll regret this, Ethan Walker, Victoria said, her voice shaking. Both of you. The only thing I regret is not seeing who you really were sooner. Ethan's voice was steel. Goodbye, Victoria. Don't come back. After they left, the room erupted in whispers. Some guests looked scandalized. Others looked impressed. But the tension had broken, and slowly, tentatively, people began to relax. Thomas Morrison appeared at Lila's elbow. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen, or the most foolish. I'm voting for foolish, Lila said shakily. I'm voting for brave. Eleanor smiled. You stood up for yourself and for your marriage. That takes courage. As the evening progressed, something shifted. The guests who'd come to gawk and judge began to actually engage. The music played. People danced. Lila found herself swept into conversations that felt almost genuine. But it was when the clock struck 10 that everything fell apart. A man burst through the front doors, wild-eyed and desperate. Lila recognized him instantly, James's old foreman from the mill. Mrs. Dawson, he shouted. I need to speak with you. It's urgent. Ethan stepped forward. This is neither the time nor the place. It's about your late husband's death, the man interrupted, looking at Lila. I lied. We all lied. It wasn't an accident. The room went dead silent. Lila felt the blood drain from her face. What are you talking about? The machinery malfunction. It wasn't a malfunction. James was murdered, and I know who did it. The world tilted sideways. Lila couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she'd just heard. Murdered. James was murdered. That's impossible, she heard herself say. The machinery failed. There was an investigation. They said it was an accident. The foreman, a man named Marcus Reed, looked haggard and desperate. We were paid to say that, all of us. The mill owner, the other workers, everyone. We were paid to keep quiet, and we took the money because we had families to feed and bills to pay, and... His voice broke. I'm sorry, Mrs. Dawson. I'm so sorry. I've carried this guilt for 3 years, and I can't do it anymore. Ethan's hand gripped Lila's shoulder, steadying her. Who paid you? Marcus's eyes darted around the room, taking in the crowd of wealthy guests, all staring at him with varying degrees of shock and fascination. I can't not hear. Not with all these people. Yes, here. Lila said, her voice suddenly hard as iron. You owe me the truth. You owed me the truth 3 years ago. So say it. Who killed my husband? Peter Dawson, his own brother. The room erupted. Gasps, exclamations, the clatter of someone dropping a glass. Lila felt her knees buckle, but Ethan caught her, held her upright. Why? The word came out as a whisper. Why would Peter kill his own brother? Money. James had taken out a life insurance policy the month before he died. $20,000. Peter was the beneficiary because James hadn't updated it yet after marrying you. Peter found out, got angry that James was planning to change it, and Marcus couldn't finish. He sabotaged the machinery. Lila finished, her voice hollow. He murdered James for $20,000 and then spent 3 years bleeding me dry for debts that were his fault in the first place. The gambling debts were real, Marcus said quickly. James did borrow money, but Peter made them worse after James died. He took out loans in James's name, forged documents, created debts that never existed. He used your guilt to keep you paying. Lila turned to Ethan, her eyes blazing with rage and grief. Where is he? Where's Peter? Still in the sheriff's custody from last night, Ethan said quietly. Breaking and entering charges. Take me there, now. Lila, you're in shock. I need to look him in the eye and hear him admit what he did. I need to know why he let me suffer for 3 years thinking my husband died because of bad luck when it was murder. Her voice rose. Take me to him, Ethan, please. He nodded once, then turned to address the stunned guests. The party's over. Please leave, now. Thomas stepped forward. I'll go with you. You'll need a witness. So will I, Eleanor added. Within minutes, they were in Ethan's carriage, racing toward town. Marcus Reed and half a dozen curious guests following behind in their own vehicles. The sheriff's office was dark when they arrived, but Ethan pounded on the door until Sheriff Hayes appeared, bleary-eyed and confused. Mr. Walker, what in the... Where's Peter Dawson? In a cell, sleeping off his drunk. Why? Because he's a murderer, Lila said, pushing past the sheriff. And I want to hear him say it. Peter was sprawled on the cot in the back cell, snoring loudly. Lila grabbed the sheriff's keys from his desk before anyone could stop her and unlocked the cell. She walked straight to Peter and slapped him across the face so hard his head snapped to the side. He jerked awake, eyes unfocused. What the hell? You killed him. Lila's voice was eerily calm. You killed James for insurance money, and then you made me pay for debts that didn't exist. You destroyed my life so you could profit from your brother's death. Peter's face went white as he registered who was standing in front of him and what she was saying. I don't know what you're talking about. Marcus Reed is outside. He's confessing everything. The payoffs, the cover-up, all of it. It's over, Peter, so stop lying and tell me why. Tell me why you killed the only family you had. Something in her voice must have broken through his denial. Peter's shoulders sagged, and when he looked up at her, there was no remorse in his eyes. Only bitterness. Because he got everything, Peter said flatly. Our fathers love mother's attention, the respect of everyone in town. I was the older brother, but James was the golden child. And then he married you, started making plans for his future, took out that insurance policy to protect his perfect little life. Meanwhile, I was drowning in debt, working jobs that led nowhere, watching him succeed while I failed. So you killed him. I sabotaged the machinery. I didn't think it would kill him, I just wanted him hurt. Wanted him to lose something for once. But the damage was worse than I planned, and Peter stopped, but the admission was already complete. You let me think it was an accident, Lila said, her voice shaking now. You came to his funeral, you hugged me, you cried with me, and the whole time you knew you'd murdered him. I didn't mean to kill him, but you did. And then you spent 3 years extorting me, bleeding me dry, making me feel guilty for debts that were manufactured. You destroyed what was left of my life after you took my husband. You got your revenge though, didn't you? Peter's voice turned vicious. Married yourself a rich cowboy. Traded up. James would be so proud. Lila drew back her hand to slap him again, but Ethan caught her wrist. He's not worth it, Ethan said quietly. Sheriff, arrest this man for murder and fraud. Marcus Reed is willing to testify. I'll pay for the best prosecutor in Texas to make sure he spends the rest of his life in prison. As the sheriff dragged a protesting Peter from the cell, Lila finally collapsed. Ethan caught her, lowered her into a chair, and she buried her face in her hands and sobbed. 3 years of grief, guilt, and manipulation came pouring out in racking waves. I blamed myself. she choked out between sobs. I thought if I'd been a better wife, if I'd managed money better, if I'd just been enough. I thought it was my fault he was working that day. My fault he was at the mill. My fault he died. And all this time, it was Peter. All this time, James's own brother. Shh. Ethan pulled her against his chest, holding her while she shook. It's not your fault. None of this was ever your fault. I wasted 3 years hating myself, and now you know the truth. Now you can let it go. She pulled back to look at him, tears streaming down her face. How do I let go of 3 years of my life that were built on a lie? The same way we're letting go of the lie our marriage started as. We acknowledge what it was, and we choose what it becomes. The words pierced through her grief. Our marriage is real now, if you want it to be. Lila, I know tonight's been... He stopped, clearly struggling for words. I know everything's falling apart around us, but I need you to know something. I don't care about the scandal. I don't care about the newspaper article or what society thinks, or even about my grandfather's will anymore. I care about you. Only you. Ethan, let me finish. When that foreman walked into our party and dropped this bomb, my first thought wasn't about the scandal or the gossip or how this would look. It was about you. About protecting you. About making sure you were okay. That's when I knew. Knew what? That this isn't pretend anymore. Maybe it never really was. Maybe from the moment you opened your door to me, we were heading here. To this. To choosing each other, not because we have to, but because we can't imagine not choosing each other. Fresh tears spilled down Lila's cheeks, but these were different. I was married to James for 2 years. I loved him. But what I feel for you, it's bigger, scarier. It consumes me in ways that terrify me because if I lose you, you won't lose me. I'm not going anywhere. He cupped her face in his hands. I love you, Lila Walker. Not Lila Dawson the widow, not Lila the seamstress, not Lila, the woman I hired to be my wife. Just Lila, the woman who argues with me at breakfast, the woman who makes beautiful things with her hands, the woman who stood up to Victoria Ashford and Mrs. Ashford and every other person who tried to make her feel small. That's who I love. I love you too, she whispered. I fought it for so long because I was afraid. Afraid it wasn't real. Afraid I was just grateful. Afraid I was replacing James with you. But I'm not. You're not a replacement. You're the person I was supposed to find. And I almost missed it because I was too scared to believe I deserved happiness again. He kissed her, then slow and gentle a promise and a claim all at once. When they broke apart, Thomas was standing in the doorway, pointedly looking away. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a crowd forming outside. The party guests followed us here. They heard everything. Ethan and Lila exchanged glances, then walked outside together. At least 30 people stood in the street having witnessed Peter's confession through the jailhouse windows. The mayor, Mrs. Patterson from the general store, Thomas and Eleanor Marcus Reed, and dozens of others. The mayor stepped forward. Mrs. Walker, I owe you an apology. We all do. We judged you without knowing the full story. You weren't entirely wrong, Lila said quietly. I did marry Ethan for money. That part of the newspaper article was true. But you fell in love with him, Mrs. Patterson said gently. Anyone watching you two tonight could see that. We did. Ethan confirmed, his arm sliding around Lila's waist. Our marriage started as a business arrangement, yes. I needed a wife to meet the terms of my grandfather's will. Lila needed financial security. We made a deal. But somewhere between the contract and the pretending, we stopped acting and started feeling. We fell in love despite our best efforts not to. That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard, Eleanor said, wiping at her eyes. It's certainly unconventional, the mayor said dryly. But given tonight's revelations, I think we can all agree that Mrs. Walker has suffered enough judgment. Peter Dawson's crimes are his own. They don't reflect on her character or her marriage. Hear, hear, several voices chorused. Lila felt something loosen in her chest. Not complete redemption. She knew some people would always whisper, always judge, but enough acceptance to breathe. Enough grace to move forward. "There's one more thing," Ethan said, his voice carrying over the crowd. "I'm withdrawing my claim to my grandfather's inheritance." Gasps erupted. Lila turned to stare at him. "What Ethan know?" "Yes. The will required me to be married by my 35th birthday. I am married. But I don't want there to be any question about why. I don't want anyone, including my wife, to wonder if I'm staying in this marriage for money. So I'm refusing the inheritance. The ranch, the business, holdings, all of it. Let it go to my sister or be sold or given to charity. I don't care." "You're insane," Lila breathed. "That's your family's legacy. You're my legacy now. Building a life with you is worth more than any amount of money or property. But the ranch, your home. We'll find a new home, together. Maybe here in Cedar Creek, maybe somewhere else entirely. But wherever we go, we'll build it ourselves. No grandfather's conditions, no inheritance strings. Just us and what we make of our lives." "Ethan Walker, you're the most stubborn, impractical, wonderful man I've ever met. Is that a yes?" "To what?" "To really being my wife, not because of a contract or a deal or anything except love. Will you marry me again, Lila?" A real wedding this time, with real vows and real promises and a real future. She laughed through her tears. "We're already married." "Then will you stay married to me? Choose me every day. Build a life with me that's entirely ours." "Yes." She threw her arms around his neck. "Yes, yes, yes." He kissed her to applause and cheers from the crowd. When they finally broke apart, Thomas was grinning. "Well, that's one way to handle a scandal. Turn it into a love story." "It is a love story," Eleanor said firmly. "It just took the scenic route to get there." The next morning, Lila woke in her own bed. Her bed in Ethan's house, soon to be their house. And for the first time in 3 years, she felt light. The truth about James's death was out. Peter was in jail where he belonged. The debts that had crushed her for so long were revealed as fraudulent. And most importantly, she was married to a man she actually loved. She found Ethan in the dining room reading the newspaper. When he saw her, he held it up with a wry smile. "We made the front page again." The headline read, "Walker Ranch Scandal Takes Shocking Turn, Murder, Love, and Redemption." The article detailed Peter's confession, Marcus Reed's testimony, and ended with a surprisingly sympathetic portrayal of Lila and Ethan's love story. "At least this time they got it right," Lila said, sitting down across from him. "More or less. They're still speculating about whether our marriage will last now that the inheritance is off the table." "Let them speculate. We know the truth." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "I spoke with my lawyer this morning. The inheritance paperwork is being handled. The ranch will go to Caroline. She'll do good things with it." "You're really giving it all up." "I'm not giving up anything that matters. I'm gaining everything that does." "What happens now?" "Where do we go from here?" "Wherever we want. We could stay in Cedar Creek. I still have some money saved enough to start fresh. Or we could go somewhere new. Austin maybe? Or further, California, Colorado, anywhere." "I've never been anywhere except Texas." "Then let's change that. Let's travel. See the country. Figure out what we want to do with our lives without anyone else's expectations weighing us down." "That sounds expensive." "I have enough, and you can sew dresses anywhere. We'll figure it out as we go." Lila thought about it. Really thought about it. The idea of leaving Cedar Creek, leaving behind the gossip and the memories and the weight of other people's opinions, starting fresh, somewhere new with just Ethan and possibility. "Okay," she said. "Okay. Let's do it. Let's leave. Not forever maybe, but for a while. Let's see what life looks like when we're not performing for anyone else." His smile was brilliant. "When do you want to leave?" "As soon as we can pack." They spent the next week settling affairs. Ethan signed over the ranch to Caroline, who arrived from Austin with her husband, and immediately began making plans for improvements. Lila sold her sewing equipment to Mrs. Patterson, who'd always admired her work. They paid off Marcus Reed for his courage in coming forward despite the personal cost. And they visited James's grave together. Lila knelt in the dirt, her hand on the weathered headstone. I loved you, she told the stone quietly. I need you to know that. What happened to you wasn't fair. What your brother did was monstrous. But James, I'm letting go now. I'm choosing to live again. I hope wherever you are you understand. I hope you'd want this for me. Ethan stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder, giving her space to grieve properly for the first time. When she stood, she turned to him. I'm ready. They left Cedar Creek on a bright Tuesday morning, their belongings packed into a single wagon, no destination in mind except west. Some of the townspeople gathered to see them off. Mrs. Patterson hugged Lila tightly. You come back and visit, she said. And when you're ready to settle down, you'll always have a home here. Thank you, for everything. Thomas and Eleanor rode out with them for the first few miles, then pulled their horses to a stop. Take care of each other, Thomas said, shaking Ethan's hand. We will. And Ethan, Thomas grinned. I told you so, about falling for her. Yes, you did. I should have listened sooner. As they rode away from Cedar Creek, Lila looked back one last time at the town that had been her prison and her salvation. Then she turned forward toward the horizon and whatever waited beyond it. Nervous? Ethan asked. Terrified, but in a good way. Me too. They rode in comfortable silence for a while, the Texas sun warm on their backs. Then Lila spoke. Do you think we would have found each other if circumstances had been different? If your grandfather hadn't had that will requirement? If I hadn't been desperate for money? I don't know, maybe not, but I choose to believe we would have. Because some people are meant to find each other no matter how impossible the odds. That's very romantic for a man who claimed he couldn't do romance. I'm learning. You're an excellent teacher. She laughed, the sound bright and free. What do you think people will say about us years from now, the rich cowboy and the seamstress who pretended to be married and fell in love for real? I think they'll say we were either very brave or very foolish. Both probably. Definitely both. As the sun climbed higher and Cedar Creek disappeared behind them, Lila felt the last chains of her old life fall away. She'd been a widow defined by loss, a debtor crushed by guilt, a woman who'd sold herself for survival. But she was none of those things now. She was Lila Walker, wife to a man who'd given up everything to prove his love was real. She was a woman who'd faced her darkest fears and come out the other side. She was someone who'd learned that love didn't follow rules or schedules, that it showed up in impossible circumstances and changed everything. Ethan had asked her to pretend to be his wife, and one kiss had changed everything. But it wasn't really the kiss that changed things. It was the choice they made afterward to stop pretending and start believing. To stop performing and start living. To stop protecting themselves and start risking everything for something real. Years later, when people asked how they knew their love was real and not just a convenient arrangement, Lila always gave the same answer: because they chose each other every single day, not because they had to, but because they couldn't imagine doing anything else. Love built on truth, forged in fire, and chosen freely, is the strongest foundation of all.